I was almost 30 and really wanted to get married. I kept asking my friends if they knew any good guys. That's how I met Jeff through a friend of a friend. We dated for almost a year and decided to get married. But just 2 months into our marriage, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted a divorce as soon as possible. There were some warning signs when we were dating, but my strong desire to get married made me ignore all of his flaws. Looking back, I realized I should have been more careful. My name is Olive, I'm 29, and I work as a nurse. Jeff, who was 8 years older than me, turned out to be a very self-centered and dishonest person. First of all, he lied about his job. Jeff told me he was the manager of a supermarket, but he was actually just a clerk with no managerial position. I trusted him because he was 37 years old and seemed mature. But the truth came out when we were discussing who to invite to our wedding, and he mentioned inviting the store manager and assistant manager. I asked, "Aren't you the store manager?" He casually replied, "I never said that. I just want to be the store manager someday." I was shocked and felt betrayed. But by that point, we had already booked the wedding venue, and we had met each other's families. When I hesitated and said maybe we shouldn't get married, Jeff threatened me, saying, "If you don't like it, that's fine. We don't have to get married." Feeling pressured, I regretfully agreed to go through with the wedding, even though I realized I didn't fall in love with his job title. Sure, let me simplify it for you. Jeff was trying to act impressive, but honestly, he seemed a bit stubborn. So why did he lie about being the store manager in the first place? I wanted to ask him, but I stayed quiet to avoid an argument. Then there was another lie about our house. This lie ended up with us living with Jeff's family. Before we got married, both Jeff and I were living with our parents. I had an idea that we should build a new house halfway between our parents' homes. I really wanted a nice new house for just the two of us. I grew up in a not-so-great rental house, and I really wanted a home of my own after we got married. I had been saving money for this purpose, and Jeff agreed to it right away. So when we went on dates, we often looked at houses and met with real estate agents. But when it came time to decide which house to choose, I asked Jeff if we should go with the one we saw last week. I thought being close to an elementary school would be nice, but Jeff surprised me by saying, "My sister thinks living near an elementary school is noisy. She prefers being near a convenience store, and my mom wants to be close to a hospital. My dad just wants a place to display his puzzles." I was shocked because I thought Jeff and I would be living alone. I asked, "Did you know about this all along?" Jeff explained that since he's the eldest son, they were actually building a new house for his whole family, including his parents, and that's why they had different preferences. This was news to me because I had been thinking about a home just for the two of us, and I didn't realize Jeff's family would be living with us. I'm a man, and our situations are different. Plus, your mother has accepted that her daughter is getting married. That's true, but I didn't know about it. I'm her only daughter, and I was worried at first about leaving my mother alone. So I wanted to get married, but I couldn't find a man who met my conditions. My mother told me, "I'm okay, so think about your happiness first." That's when I started dating Jeff, but I didn't mention anything about this. But here's the thing, my sister doesn't have a job, and my mom and dad are living on their retirement money. As the eldest sons of our families, we are expected to support them financially. Wait a minute, don't include me in that expectation so casually. I can't accept that my sister-in-law is included, let alone my in-laws. My sister-in-law doesn't want to work because she wants to enjoy her free time every day. It seems like she thinks my mother-in-law has a similar personality to hers, and my father-in-law is quiet, spending his time watching TV and doing jigsaw puzzles with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They don't really do any housework. As the wife of the eldest son, don't you want to help support the family? I couldn't believe what he was saying. Was he serious? If he was, then he should support them with his own salary. My dream of having a new single-family home was quickly fading. Jeff was stubborn, and he wasn't changing his mind. He said, "I'm not backing down. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce." So I suggested, "If that's the case, let's live with your family for now." I thought it was the best option. I decided to put off building a house because I didn't want to waste the money I had saved for my dream home when I was single. So, After we got married, we moved in with Jeff's family. Jeff works at a supermarket, and I'm a nurse, so we both have irregular work schedules. Shortly after moving in, I was woken up by my mother-in-law. She pulled off my blanket and slapped me, saying, "You're a terrible wife if you sleep all day. I just got home, and I have to work tomorrow night. Stop complaining and do the housework. Make lunch." I was taken aback and didn't know what to do. I quietly pushed my mother-in-law out of the room. I was really tired, and this situation wasn't a joke. "I'm exhausted, Olive," I thought to myself. But then I heard my mother-in-law still making noise in the hallway, complaining. I decided to ignore her, so I locked the door, put in some earplugs, and went back to sleep. I woke up around 3 p.m. and started doing the housework. It felt strange to me. Why was I the one doing all the housework and also working when there were 3 other healthy adults in this house? Then my husband came home and said, "Hey, Olive, I heard you were home, but didn't make lunch for Mom and the others." I replied, "I was tired. They make and eat their own food when I'm not here, so they can do the same when I'm asleep." Jeff scolded me in front of his parents and sister-in-law, who were smirking behind him. I couldn't hold back my frustration, and I accidentally said, "What about your work? You said you were working until tonight." Jeff replied, "I left early because my sister called about a family emergency. Just because I didn't make lunch, are you stupid?" I realized I had made things worse by speaking my mind. Jeff scolded me even more. It felt like being married into this family was always this difficult for the wife. I never had a moment's peace in my in-laws' house. So, I often made excuses to go back to my parents' home. When I was tired or had a day off, my mother didn't say anything to welcome me. I wanted to get a divorce, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Then, the idea of moving to my parents' house came up. They wanted us to move out next year. Right now, the rental house where my mother lives is in really bad shape. The landlord decided it's better to tear it down than to fix all the problems. It's not happening right away, but there are shelter cats, so we need to find a pet-friendly apartment. After my father passed away, my mother started volunteering to take care of stray and lost cats temporarily. Even though the house was rented and almost 50 years old, the landlord was understanding, so it was possible. Then I thought, I'll help you too. I found a good reason to spend time on my days off. It's good for my mother, and I enjoy looking at properties myself. It was like hitting 3 birds with 1 stone. While visiting several real estate agents, I realized that owning a single-family home was like a dream within a dream for me. But then I thought, wait, if I get a divorce, that would solve the problem, right? A house is a lifetime purchase, and I want to live with someone I genuinely want to be with. And then, we happened to come across a construction company called Cat Ear Construction. There were pictures of cats on the sign, and a banner in front of the entrance said, "Homes for Cat Lovers." We couldn't resist going into the store. The shop assistant was really friendly. She told us about something called a catio, which is like an outdoor cage for cats. She explained all the cool things they could provide for cats, like sunrooms for cats that like to sunbathe and big cages that let cats safely go outside through their own entrance. We listened carefully and took lots of brochures. As we left the store, I said, "I'm going to get a divorce and live with my mom." My mother was surprised by this sudden announcement but didn't say anything more. I couldn't imagine Jeff, my in-laws, or my sister-in-law changing, and I thought the harassment would probably get worse. I didn't want to just go along with it. When I got home, it was already evening, so I quickly prepared dinner. I put the brochures in a bag on the sofa to look at later. The laundry I had hung out in the morning was still there, and the cereal and spoons my in-laws and sister-in-law had used for lunch were still on the kitchen table. My sister-in-law complained, "You're always going out even though you're a wife." "I'm starving." I replied, "Sorry, but you could have made something too." My father-in-law was angrily pouting, but I decided not to worry about it. After all, we would soon be strangers to each other anyway. When my husband came home late, he yelled, "Hey, there's only $700 in our joint account for this month's living expenses." I panicked and lied, saying, "Oh, sorry, there was some trouble at the office, and my salary is delayed." He warned me, "Make sure to deposit it as soon as you get paid, or else we'll divorce." Actually, last month when we moved in together, we talked about how to handle our living expenses. Jeff insisted that I put almost all of my $2,500 salary into the joint account, and he would only contribute $700. He said the rest would be his spending money. But I didn't think that was fair. I wanted us to contribute equally, and somehow, I've only put in $700 for the past 2 months. After that, our days continued without much change. I consulted a lawyer, got ready for a divorce, organized my belongings, and tidied up my parents' house. I was also busy with work. Jeff and I rarely had the same days off, but recently he started going out with his parents and sometimes his sister-in-law. I thought it was unusual, but it was convenient for me too. Then one day, Jeff dropped the bombshell. He said, "I've bought a newly built two-family house, and we're going to sign the loan contract together. If you oppose it, we'll divorce." He even showed me divorce papers. I was shocked and asked, "A house? What do you mean you bought a house?" He mentioned housing brochures, and I remember that we had looked at them together. But he said, "Since we're building it according to your wishes, I'll need all your savings." I wanted to see those divorce papers to understand the situation better. I was shocked by this sudden turn of events, but I saw it as an opportunity. I quietly took the divorce papers, feeling a bit amazed. When I looked at them, they were properly filled out, even with my in-laws as witnesses. It was almost funny because Jeff didn't know that I had been preparing for a divorce. He was trying to make me do what he wanted by threatening me with the thing I disliked the most, divorce. I used to hate the idea of divorce, but now I wanted it as soon as possible. So I quickly signed the divorce papers and handed them in. The next morning, I hadn't brought any big items like furniture, and I had been moving my things out little by little. Although it was a relatively easy move, I went straight back to my parents' house. I ignored all the calls and emails from Jeff, and I didn't return home that night. Later on, my ex-husband came to my parents' house. He was really angry, and so were my in-laws and my sister-in-law. They demanded to know why I hadn't come back home. "I just got divorced because you gave me the divorce papers," I replied calmly. "Don't mess with me. I built a house." Jeff was angry because I hadn't agreed to his plan. "You built a house without consulting me. You said if I opposed, we'd divorce, so that's on you," I said. Maybe because we were at my parents' house, my mother-in-law was quieter than usual. She said, "Olive, Jeff must have been joking. Joking with real divorce papers is in very bad taste." I explained, "I'm getting divorced because our personalities don't match at all. That's the #1 reason for divorce." My sister-in-law also screamed, "We'll be in trouble without you. Who will pay the living expenses? Who will pay the mortgage?" I replied, "Well, that's for your family to figure out. I'm a stranger now. Why do I need to take care of a healthy sister-in-law in the first place?" My father-in-law didn't say anything but glared at me. Jeff said, "I never thought you were such a cold woman." I teased, "Oh, that's what they call a difference in values." Another perfect reason for divorce. When I talked to my lawyer, I learned that it's not easy to get a divorce just based on personality differences or differences in values. However, in Jeff's case, he lied about his job and income, and he was causing a lot of problems. He was trying to make me pay all the living expenses. The final straw was when he bought a two-family house without my consent and threatened me with divorce papers. The reasons for divorce were clear, and I wanted it. Even if Jeff said he wouldn't accept it, he had written it himself, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law were witnesses. I showed him a photo of the divorce papers on my phone that I had taken before submitting them. Then my mother appeared, filming with her phone. She said, "What do you think you're doing to my daughter?" I called the police, and I'm recording all of this. I can make it public. My mother was furious. Father-in-law was worried about the police getting involved and said, "Calling the police is troublesome, and it's bad for our public image. Stop it." I realized that Jeff's vanity came from his father. With that, Jeff and the others left in shame. They were worried about how to pay the loan for the house. A few months later, my mother's and my dream house was completed. It was a newly built single-family house by Cat Ear Construction, perfect for our rescue cats to live comfortably. The construction company, knowing about my mother's activities, built the perfect house for us at a much lower price than the market rate. Both my mother and I were thrilled. I had rushed into marriage and made a big mistake, but if I hadn't married, I probably wouldn't have thought to build this house. Watching the cats basking in the sun and sleeping contentedly, I began to think that all's well that ends well.